I remember I walked up into St James's and my hands, everything, my whole body just lit up. I've got goosebumps. All
I get the I get those goosebumps every time you come around. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that. We're back. Welcome to Loaded Bag NUFC. The Full Loaded Transfer Show. We are here. We're ready to rock and roll, sort of. But yes, we are ready to go. Welcome everyone in the chat. We'll come to you in just a second. But boys, it's been a while. It's been a good few days now since we've been on. What should we talk about? First of all, how are things?
Your name is Pete again, isn't it? Pete. Yeah, it's been that long. Yeah, I was laughing at you there, Pete. It was like cramming as you're about to enter an exam, getting it all in, getting all the pictures into the system because there's so much to talk about. So yeah, but we're here. All good. From my side of things, it was Luca's birthday yesterday, so party for Luca. He's 7, so loving that, loving life. All good. But yeah, looking forward to talking a bit about Newcastle. And they had a bank holiday in Ireland yesterday as well. Did I mention that to you guys?
I never mentioned
No. But how are you, Chris?
All good, mate. All good. Currently away with work, so I'm at Stamford Bridge, funnily enough. So I've got my eyes out for Tosin. Keeping a lookout for Tosin, see if I can get him to change his mind. But yeah, all good with me, mate. Due to go home to Liverpool tomorrow. Should be home about 10:30 tomorrow night. So looking forward to it already. But yeah, as always, really looking forward to coming on with you boys. And isn't it just typical? We organise a show, and we look forward to talking about X, and then Y turns up, and then Z turns up. So I know we've got lots to talk about this evening. But yeah, all good from my point of view. Pete, how are you doing, fella?
Yeah, I'm all right now. Busy getting everything sorted. Laptop was playing up about half an hour before the show, so it put me back slightly and getting things ready for the show, but we're about there. I'm ready to rock and roll. So let's rock and roll. And as you said, very, very interesting that one or two things always tend to just pop up on the world of football social media and Newcastle United social media that creates a topical conversation, which I'm sure we will get into, no doubt. But of course, do all that good stuff. Make sure we click those likes. If you're new to the channel, just coming in for the first time, come and subscribe to Loaded Mag NUFC. It's the only place to be for Newcastle United transfer over the summer. We'll talk all the names, all the links. We'll give our own opinions. We'll throw out some names, and I've got some names to throw out tonight. So yeah, we'll definitely be discussing what's going to happen next with Newcastle United. Because look, let's start. Saturday morning, everyone's nice and chilled, waiting for the weekend to just properly kick in, and then we get the news that we didn't want, that Tosin Adarabioyo was closing in on the move to Chelsea. Now, obviously, that's been a few days on. That's moved on. He's now in the position of having his medical, so we know for a fact he isn't coming to Newcastle United. But the one thing we didn't do, boys, is have our own sort of conversation and opinion on Tosin. So we'll get that out of the way. Not coming to Newcastle. Fuck him. Right, fuck him. But in our opinions, just so we get out there, what did we make of that when it hit the news with Fabrizio Romano, Daz?
Yeah, it's just disappointment. It's disappointing, but like he's not a bad player now just because he's going to Chelsea. Yeah, he's a good player. He has his qualities. The best of the qualities was that he's going to be a free transfer, though. But yeah, he would have shored up our back line when we need reinforcements when some of our key players are out until Christmas, let's say. He would have been a good squad player going forward then as well. And Eddie would have coulda, shoulda, woulda, but Eddie would have made improved him. Whether he'll be doing that under the former Leicester manager, new Chelsea manager, who's there at least to December anyway. I think he'll be there for. But yeah, it's and you ask the question how much of game time he's going to get. Maybe he'll get a bit. I know there's a bit of chopping and changing going on at Chelsea as well. And then there's the talk of of did he go for the money, the extra cash? Staying in London must have been a factor as well. From we can understand that. And then to a lesser degree for me. It'd be the playing in Europe in the Conference League would play part of his decision. Would have been a factor in his decision, but I think that the money and staying in London was the final nail in him making his decision. But best of luck to him. We'll move on. We'll have to put some money down now for our right-sided centre back, but we're going to need to do that anyway. So I think back to the drawing board, and we have plenty of options to choose from as well.
Definitely. Chris, lots of negativity on social media, lots of disappointment, but also lots of people arguing one way or another. And there was a bit of a conversation going on Saturday into Sunday and beyond about the fact that, European football was the main factor as why Tosin Adarabioyo hasn't signed for Newcastle United and Chelsea have it. Now, it wasn't that. It was a big wad of money that he's been thrown his way from Chelsea. Where do you see that in the Tosin Adarabioyo situation? Could it be both? Is it one or the other? Where do you kind of lie in that conversation?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, mate. I think for me, I don't think the European factor has really played a part, if I'm honest. Particularly Europa Conference, which is what Chelsea will be playing next season. I can't imagine that he would have looked at that and gone, "Oh, I much prefer to play Europa Conference League than no Europe at all." I'll be honest. For me, I think it's probably a monetary thing. And let's not forget, Pete. Chelsea in the not too distant past won the Champions League. Big club. They are a big club, and I think that's probably tempted him. He's been made promises. That he will be first choice. Who's to say that will happen? I think he's going to struggle to get in the starting 11 with Chelsea, if I'm honest, given the amount of options that they've got. But that's not our concern. Some people will say it's money. We'll never truly know. And let's not forget, Pete. He's been plying his trade with Fulham, and it now means that he doesn't have to relocate. That could have been a big factor. We don't know what the ins and outs are, but all I do know is that I think personally he will regret the decision to join Chelsea. Who's to say he will or he won't? But that's my personal opinion. I think that coming to Newcastle would have been a good opportunity for him to get some first team football. Joining a club who are very settled with Eddie Howe as manager. He's joining a club who've only recently hired a new manager, so it's all up in the air for him. And by all accounts, I can't imagine it was Maresca who will have wanted Tosin. It was probably a club decision. So let's hope that, Todd Bowley has made the right decision in bringing Tosin in, and that Maresca wants Tosin as part of his squad, because if he finds himself not playing first team football, he could soon very much regret it. Or will he regret it on 130, 160 grand a week, whatever you want to believe it is. Maybe he won't. But I think we move on. The biggest shame for me about us not getting Tosin is the fact that obviously we're going to probably have to spend money bringing in a new right centre back if that's what Eddie Howe and the club choose to do, because Tosin Adarabioyo and Lloyd Kelly gave us opportunities to kind of bridge any gaps that we had in the defence and not have to outlay much money. So now that Tosin's joined Chelsea or is about to join Chelsea, it just means that we've got to look elsewhere. But is it the end of the world? No. I'm not going to be bitter over it and say he's not very good or I don't want him anyway, because I think he would have been a good addition to the squad. But equally, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Put it that way.
Yeah, I'm slightly different. I think all the points that you boys have made, I think it's a bit of both, or all three, should I say? I think there is an allure of European football for a lad that's never played it before. He's 26 years old. If he was 21, 22, maybe not, because he'd be able to feel in his mind that he'd be able to kind of work his way there at some point. I do think that plays a part in it. I do think the money's a huge part in it as well. Rumored to be 160 grand a week. There's no way we're paying that. I think Bruno's on maybe a little bit more than that as one of our highest earners. There's no way we're paying that for a 26-year-old centre-back who's not proven at the top end of the Premier League. There's just no way. So I do think that's a massive factor too. But I also, as you mentioned, it's the location. There is, and there always will be, no matter how we feel, and we don't live in the region of the Northeast, but we love the Northeast. We know what it's all about. We know the culture and what it means to live up in Newcastle, because we've been there so many times over the crazy amount of years that we supported the club. So we know what it means to live there, and we know so many players that have moved there. I'll just go back to John Joe Shelby, for example. That lad who's as London as it comes talks about Newcastle as the Northeast in such a positive way. He absolutely loved his time there. But the problem is, it's about getting a player there. And for some players, as we go back to Tammy Abrahams, for example, when he was meant to come up with Rafa Benitez and he ends up going to Swansea. Why? Because it's a closer journey away to London. You are going to get those people that are just, unfortunately, just stuck to being in London. If you're in London now, you're a clown. That's what I say. If you're in and around London now, Jesus Christ, I'm joking. But no,
look out your window, though, Chris.
On a serious note, location will be a factor for him. And let's not forget Fulham and Chelsea, not too far away. So the living quarters, he probably isn't going to need to change even where he lives, which has already been mentioned. But look, at the end of the day, he's a top. He was our top, one of our top priority signings because he was free, as you boys said. And there's a question there about whether that might change things with regards to what we do in the summer, and that's another conversation in itself, which we'll probably get onto in just a second. But just for the purposes of this show, it means we can get rid of this. So bye Tosin. I'm actually going to delete it now off the system. It's gone. It's over. It's done with, and everything Tosin related, because he's no longer in Newcastle United's thoughts. However, there is one player that is part of our priority, who is very much in our thoughts. And there has been some movement today, and it's regarding this man, Lloyd Kelly. Now, a lot of people thought that this deal was a lot closer than Tosin. I think we talked about it on previous Full Loaded transfer shows. But when others mention it, it seems like it comes to fruition. And Mike McGrath from the Telegraph reported that we were looking likely to get this deal potentially even this week over the line. And that started a chain reaction in a number of people reporting on this. Team Talker reported on getting a boost, and Lloyd Kelly potentially saying yes. And then we get Fabrizio Romano this morning, which you boys have seen, so many people in the chat have seen, saying that we are preparing those final details to get it done. The question I've got for you boys, and Daz, I'll come to you first, is this essential now that we get this Lloyd Kelly deal done and dusted, having seen what happened at the weekend with Tosin Adarabioyo? Is it crucial for Newcastle United at this point in the window?
Yes, and for a couple of reasons. Big one being he's a free transfer. Two, that he's played with Eddie before, so he knows what he's walking into. He knows what he's setting himself up for. He's a leader as well at Bournemouth, and so we need to nail this one. We no messing about. It needs to be done now. Like at the moment, I haven't heard of anyone else swooping in, but that doesn't mean that won't happen come the end. But I think It's a no-brainer. It has to get done. If you had asked me to start between the two, I thought this was the more likely one, but we all thought the Tosin one was going to happen as well. But it just gets done, and because we can't afford to be trying to buy two centre backs as well as the other areas we need to strengthen in. So it just gets done.
Just gets done. Just needs to get done, is what Daz said. Chris, you're the same mindset, and has it become even more crucial now that this deal has to get done? It's not our priority deal for this summer. I think we'll be talking about other players that are higher profile than Lloyd Kelly. But is this essential?
I wouldn't say it's essential, but it's very important. In an ideal world, we'd have got Tosin and Lloyd Kelly. And I'm not just saying this to sound bitter, but out of the two, like Lloyd Kelly was the more important one for me, particularly because we know that he's equally comfortable at centre-back and left-back. And I think that the squad needs that. The fact Lloyd Kelly, as Dad has mentioned, has worked with Eddie Howe before, I think is a big factor. Whenever I've seen him, I've been impressed with Lloyd Kelly. And for me, I think, if we were to lose out on Tosin and Lloyd Kelly, I think it'd be a real kick in the teeth. But if we get Lloyd Kelly over the line, I'm sure we'll quickly forget about Tosin Adarabioyo, because really, you could argue he was a bit of a nice to have. The opportunity came up, Newcastle were interested. But Lloyd Kelly's someone who, I think Eddie Howe and his coaching team know a lot about, obviously. But he's a player that's been linked with Newcastle pretty much since Eddie Howe joined, really. I think in the first transfer window that we had after Eddie Howe joined Lloyd Kelly, there was whispers about Lloyd Kelly as it was. So for me, in order for us to really improve the, that underbelly of the squad, bringing someone like him in on a free transfer with, a signing on fee alone, I think it helps us with our budget and balancing that and making sure that we can put the funds elsewhere in the squad. So I wouldn't say he's essential. Like I wouldn't, say like it has to happen, but it would be a big bonus, put it that way. So yeah, I'm excited about getting Lloyd Kelly in, and I hope that we do get the deal over the line.
Yeah, a lot of fans are worried, saying, "Oh, why isn't it getting done now? Why isn't it getting finalised?" And the reason being is because they've got to wait until the contract runs out, which is the end of this month. So officially, we probably won't get it signed and sealed and delivered until the 1st of July, where his contract officially ends at Bournemouth, and then fingers crossed it will start at Newcastle from the 1st of July. So, but we can get, similar to what's happened with Chelsea and Tosin, an announcement of some form of agreement. And I think that's kind of what we're getting today. We got that with Fabrizio Romano. We put it on the screen earlier. And I think what we'll get is that our reporters, sort of like the Newcastle-based reporters, like Sir Craig Hope, like Sir Jordan Cronin and others, will start to finalise it and say, like, a deal's been agreed. It's going to be happening. And I think at that point, we will feel a little bit more at ease. And for me, I'm not going to lie, I do think this deal is crucial. And the reason why is because they might not be the stellar signings that we're looking for this summer, but I do think it doesn't paint Newcastle in a great light, losing out on 2 free signings for whatever reason, wages, whatever it is. It's not a great look for Newcastle. I think it would have shown immense strength going into the summer, having got Tosin and Lloyd Kelly. But it's not the end of the world losing out on Tosin, but losing out on both would be, because what that would mean is, for me, that we would have to then stretch the budget to be able to have to then pay fees for other players. And that is crucial for Newcastle. We cannot, I say we cannot, we can be in a position to go out and stretch the budget and pay elsewhere, but it might then mean that our targets may not be the ones that we want them to be. And that's really, really important for Newcastle this window. But it's going to be interesting. Lots of people in the chat got their opinions on Lloyd Kelly. I think, Jamie, I've just seen a comment there saying Lloyd Kelly's injury list is worrying me. This guy's been injured a lot. How do you feel about that? So, well, I'll ask you boys, how do you feel about that? With him potentially coming in, are you worried the fact that his injury record hasn't been great recently, although he's played quite a bit towards the back end of the season.
I haven't looked at it in too much detail, to tell you the truth, but it's a gamble I'm willing to go with on this one. Don't have the luxury now. We can't buy two centre backs. So roll the dice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, for me, Pete, just to add in, by the way, what you said on Lloyd Kelly, I think it's a really good point, about what image it sends out, us losing out on the 2 free transfers. I think you're right. And also, we acknowledge as fans, and we hope that, we could look to bring in maybe 5-6 players this window, and we're not going to bring in 5 or 6 first team superstars. It's just not going to happen. So I think you're right in what you say, in that it's about upgrading the squad and upgrading the positions that we need to. But in terms of Lloyd Kelly's injuries, I'll be honest, it doesn't concern me too much, given that Lloyd Kelly will be coming to Newcastle from Bournemouth, being first choice at Bournemouth, playing week in, week out. And Lloyd Kelly's not going to be a first choice week in, week out type player for me. I think he's going to be someone that's utilised within the squad. So you would hope that his injury record will improve at Newcastle, because I think there'll be a lot of occasions where he'll be available to play, but he won't necessarily start, or he won't necessarily play. So hopefully that will actually work in our favour.
Yeah. If there's anyone that can manage a player that's coming in with an injury record, it'll be Eddie Howe. And obviously take last season away, because last season
loads of experience last season.
And that's the thing. It was an anomaly. But what we did the season previous can show us that injuries can be managed. And I think this is what Eddie Howe's doing now. His experience of so many injuries last season will mean he'll want to build a squad. Lloyd Kelly, for me, I don't know if you agree here. For me, I think he'll predominantly come in as a left back. And then what you've got there is competition in places with Lewis Hall. And I think that's a real kind of area of strength there, that with Lloyd Kelly playing and then being able to come out for Lewis Hall to come in and get valuable minutes, it will allow him to not be stretched and pushed to play all the time constantly. And when he's able to play, he's able to give 100%. And I think that'll be one of the areas that will really, really improve for Newcastle United. And this is what we need. We need squad players. We need players to play in a squad that can start. We need players for the cup games. We need players to play in the big games in the league. And I do think it'll be a good deal. I'm not worried about the injuries. His form back end of the season has proven that he is more than capable of playing regular football at this level. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him. If anyone's not seen him, he played predominantly left back all the back end of last season for Bournemouth. He's an attacking left back. He likes to get forward. He's got a deceptively superb cross on him. Some of the crosses he's put in the back end of the season. I watched the game against Man United where Bournemouth should have won by 2 or 3. And some of the crosses he was putting in for Solanke and some of the attacking players was absolutely superb. And he's gone on and done the same in a number of games in the back end of the season. So that's why I think left back will be his position. But he can play left centre back as well. And he loves a tackle, that's for sure. Which is a nice positive. But I can see people in the chat. I can see Mr. LB is in the chat, and he's
recruiting.
What's that?
He's recruiting, Pete.
He's ready for war. We're strapping up, LB. We're strapping up, ready for war. I don't know if you boys want to cover that now or whether you want to come to it later. I don't know. I find it very, very interesting that topic.
Well, you know what, Pete? We've got LB in the chat, and obviously we've got Jack Grealish in the chat. It's only right that we talk about going to war, isn't it?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Is it weird that we're shouting for Man City again? We're counting on Man City for a victory again so soon after you know what?
Yeah,
it's a strange one.
You're right, and our question is this time to LB and to those Man City fans: is that are you actually going to do the job this time? Because you didn't last time, so the pressure's on. But look, let's not beat around the bush. It's a breaking news topic that came out later on this afternoon, not long before the show actually, an exclusive from the Times, Matt Lawton. It said Man City have launched an unprecedented legal action against the Premier League in a move that has sparked civil war in English football's top flight. The outcome could dramatically alter the landscape of the professional game. And a little bit of detail in the back of that is that it's all kind of centered. Well, first and foremost, it is not related to the 115 charges. That's the key. It's a separate kind of case. Okay, the case for the 115 charges is going to be later on this year, talking about November, maybe December. That's separate. Okay, this case is actually going to be seen within the next 2 weeks. So we're going to get a turnaround and an answer on this very, very quickly. And it's all related to third-party sponsorships and dealings. So we know that very well, boys, because did that law change very quickly after our takeover? I'm pretty sure that was the case, right?
Yeah,
it was like it was to slow us down or something.
Yeah,
did you not get that feeling? Yeah,
most definitely. The fact that there was almost an emergency Premier League meeting once the takeover had happened, and that was maybe a little caveat to calm the cartel down, some may say, out of their frustration of us being taken over. But anyway, what Man City are saying is that not allowing those third parties, or should I say not necessarily allowing, or putting a market value on them and deciding what is acceptable and what is not for a company to pay for sponsorships to a club. They are saying that is unlawful. And therefore, that is their argument, and that is what they're up against with the Premier League. Now, boys, what do you make of that? Because it has sent shockwaves through social media, sent shockwaves through a number of Premier League clubs, notably Man City and us. What do you make of it all?
First of all, I think we could set the tone with some background music. Yes, really. Man City, the might of Man City and the financial power behind Man City. You know, you went up against someone with a bit of cash in the bank before, and it didn't play out too well. They kind of fell over themselves. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. And there's another club. They haven't been named yet, or they haven't been named earlier today, of who was kind of backing them or giving voice to it as well. So I hope that's us, because since this thing was rolled out for us more or less originally. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It'll play out in the background as well, along with the whole Dan Ashford thing, the ADIDAS coming in, the potential for players maybe, and PSR balancing the book before introduces a lot happening into it, and also the Bruno Willis there go Man City hands off Bruno, by the way, as well, not going anywhere. So there's a lot of things happening in June, but this one in particular, yeah, we'll be behind City for this one, because we would stand for big time if this was. If something was to change here, it could be a real game changer for us, and we wouldn't be talking about so many free signing or free transfers. Then it'd be the higher end of the scale. We wouldn't have to worry about PSR so much, or anchoring even into the season after that, because we would get top dollar for our sponsorship deals. And Peter Stuyvesant is doing a great job actually in that role. He's getting deals all over the place, and even companies linked to other companies as well. There are benefiting off that. So all good for us anyway. But this would be the game changer. So watch this space.
Chris, what are your thoughts hearing all that? It's I'm not going to lie, it's really, really interesting that this has come about at this point in the window.
Yeah, do you know what, Pete? I completely agree. We briefly spoke about it before we went live, only very briefly. And, you know, for me, the most interesting point on this is the timing. Now, I know people will say it's a distraction for the 115 charges. Other people will say that, you know, Man City are doing this because they're kind of frustrated like we are, in terms of, you know, is it that Man City or the finance people at Man City have gone to Pep Guardiola, listen, you know, you can't spend much this season, or you can't, you know, this window, you're not going to be able to do this, or you know, you want to bring in these 2, 3, 4 players, you're not going to be able to do it. And then they've just gone, do you know what, I've had enough of this. You know, somebody's got to speak up about it. Now, we spoke a while ago, didn't we, when these rules came in, and said that, you know, we felt that we wanted somebody to kind of challenge the Premier League on this. We wanted somebody to bring the argument to the Premier League. And Newcastle, we always felt that Newcastle were never going to be that club, because we don't want, you know, all the focus on us. It would be easy and it would be obvious for us to be the club that did that. But the fact that we haven't, it just brought a smile to my face when I read the reports, because I thought, I bet, you know, the PIF, Amanda, me, Dad, and co will be looking at this and, you know, rubbing their hands together and thinking, this is what we've been waiting for. What is interesting, like Dad said, is whether or not we're going to be, you know, backing them, certainly out in the public, or whether we're just going to sit back and just watch it all unfold. Because it's not just, I mean, obviously, you know, we do happen to have, you know, the richest owners in football, but it's not just us that is affected. I'm sure there'll be other clubs who will be frustrated by the limitations. We spoke, didn't we, about, you know, like clubs like Luton and Forest and clubs like that, who they're never going to get bought by big owners, because how are they ever commercially going to catch up with the likes of, you know, the Big Six, Newcastle, clubs like that, who are on a better footing, even, you know, the likes of Villa and teams like that.
Well, say the name, Chris. Say the name. Go on.
I can't. But it's always going to be. It's there to restrict, isn't it? It's there to restrict clubs who want to get bigger and better and want to compete. And this is a problem that's happened since the change in rules. So the fact that Man City have chosen to do this now, I like you, Pete, I just find it fascinating, and I want to see how it unfolds. And the fact that they're trying to bring it to a conclusion so quickly, that also interests me. Given that, you know, there's an elephant in the room of 115 charges, which seems to be continually getting pushed. Yet this is coming to the forefront really quickly. Whether or not it's to tie in with the new PSR rules, or, you know, the new rules that are going to be coming in play for the next 3-year rolling period, I don't know. But I'm just sitting back, Pete, with the popcorn, just waiting to see what happens, because the best way to describe it, as a few people in the chat have said, and I think I said to you boys earlier, it kind of feels like the floodgates are about to open. And if they do open, then it's going to change the landscape of football completely. And the team it will affect most, more than anyone, is Newcastle.
I have a question here before we get your take on it, Pete. It was interesting in your take as well. But I haven't read the full article. I've just seen clippets and an interview on Sky. But how do we know that it's going to be done and dusted between 10th of June to the end of June, and it's not going to like drag on for months and months and months? Maybe we don't know the answer to that question, but I just, you know, these court cases, they just tend to drag on, and then we get no further, and we're just waiting, and we're always waiting, we're constantly in a state of waiting, and you get impatient after a while.
I think it's an arbitration situation. So I'm assuming, I could be wrong here, that they will come to a decision after that period of however long it takes to be heard, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is over that period. So I'm assuming from that point that we will get an answer. Whereas you're right, like if it was more like a sort of a court case, it would sort of just continue on and on and on. And like you said, they'll just sort of continue to kick it down the road, a little bit like what's been happening with the charges with Man City. It's been going on for years now, and it's only really coming to a head later on this year. So I do get what you're saying, but that's why I find it fascinating, boys, is because it's come about so quickly, And it's like it starts in like the 10th of June. So we're hearing the breaking news now, and then it's happening. So it does give me a feel that we are going to get a response to this. And it's fascinating because you've got a Premier League club, a huge Premier League club with big financial and kind of, big backing, certainly from a lawyer perspective as well. That they've got the money to get the best in the world, the best of the best, just like Newcastle have. And so you're thinking, if you're going to go up against the Premier League for something, you're going to go at the Premier League, which is unprecedented. You've got to have enough there to back it, to get it through. You're not going to spend millions and millions and millions knowing that you're going to lose, because what kind of credibility will that sit with Man City, knowing they've got 115 charges to back up later on in the year with the Premier League? So for me, like, they must know they've got something in order to put this through now. And what fascinates me even more about this is if Man City win, because they can't continue it. They can't continue with this third party sort of affiliation and having this sort of judging on what's market value and what's not and all the rest of it. They're going to have to get rid of that straight away. And who benefits from that with potentially still 2 months left in the transfer window? We do. And who's to say we haven't got sponsorships and various other things ready that we can just up and announce, which was the plan. Let's not forget, as Newcastle fans, we knew that was coming. And Amanda Staveley's already talked about her frustrations of the fact that that was part of the process. It is around sort of Christmas time into the new year, they were ready to announce lots of new sponsorships. And then all of a sudden, the Premier League go, bang, not allowed. We have to give you the okay. And it pushed it down the road. Kicked it right back down the road. And that was the frustration of Newcastle. If we get that thrown out, or Man City get that thrown out, that puts us right in a great position. And look, just to, if people haven't seen it, City Extra, I know Dash, you put something in our chat as well. City Extra. It talks about one senior club source saying in the past year, the Premier League's legal bills have gone up from 5 million to 20 million plus. Since February, the Premier League's legal department have also been forced to shift its focus to this claim, whilst also trying to prepare for 115 charges. So what it suggests from that point is that the Premier League are under pressure. They're having to spend a lot of money on this, money that they don't want to be spending in terms of kind of protecting their claims on this. But some other bits of information. Basically, they accuse the Premier League clubs of discrimination against the golf ownership, citing the comments of one particular senior club executive. Man City also argue sponsorships linked to club owners should be allowed to determine how much they want to pay. And that's a really interesting point. It's a really crucial point. If a sponsorship of some form wants to pay or sees it as market value to pay what they want, who is it for the Premier League to decide, no, you can't pay that because we say that's not enough? What about the company? If the company are willing to pay it, why is it not allowed? Am I wrong in thinking that? Like, I don't know. It baffles me. What do you boys think?
Yeah, within reason as well, I guess, but not the reasons that the Premier League was slapped down. That like someone put in the chat there, St James's Park being named the Armacoa Stadium for $1 billion. Like, nothing stupid like that. Like, but we take it. But it has to be within reason as well. Something that a bit over the top, maybe, but not like totally bonkers either. Because you want. I want to do this right as well. I don't that from the start. I don't want like when we thought when we got the takeover first. You're thinking, okay, we can go crazy like City and be like City from day one, and we would be past City now, and City at the benchmark there. We'll be edging towards Real Madrid's kind of status. That's the kind of craziness that was in people's heads at the start. But you want to have a level of fairness as well. But I agree that what you're saying, Pete, that if someone is willing to pay a certain amount, then there shouldn't be question on that either. But it has to be something realistic at the same time.
Mm. What are your thoughts, Chris?
I don't know. Do you know what? As always, our chat's coming up with fantastic comments and all that, and I'm reading them all, and it's just got me head whizzing now. And I'm thinking, who was it in the chat? I'm going to bring it up now because I was just reading it. Holloway Ben 92. He says, "Reckon we knew about this, lads. Might explain why we haven't sorted any training kit or training ground sponsors." And one of my questions was going to be, I've got a devil's advocate question, which I'm going to ask in a minute. But one of my questions also, when you were talking, Pete, was obviously this has come to the fray and we've heard about it today. But chances are, would there not have been whisperings somewhere along the line, to say that this is coming, and it would explain why there's a potential for us not to have this training kit sponsor, for us not to have this stadium sponsor, because we've all been saying as fans, where's the sponsorship, and it's been delayed or not spoken about, and we have all been kind of going, what's going on with this, what are we waiting for, kind of thing. So it does beg that question. But my devil's advocate question that I wanted to ask, because again, when you were talking, Pete, it just got me thinking. Say this is the scenario, right? So we all know Bruno has got this 100 million release clause, right? And Pep Guardiola has gone to the board, whatever, I want Bruno, go and get Bruno. And then the board have turned around and gone, can't. If we do, we're going to break the rules. We're not allowed to get him. Now, let's say that, if June goes, we get into July, and then City come back for Bruno, when these new rules are in place and whatnot. A City then well within their right, if they go to Newcastle, is 100 million, and Newcastle go, no, the clause is gone now, we want 150 million. A City then going to be having a conversation with the Premier League and going, hang on, we want this player, but we've got to pay 150 million for them now. We've had to pay an extra 50 million because you and your rules, you're not allowing us to be able to spend the money that we want to spend. So it does for me, it begs the question, is this like an anti-competitive case? People keep writing in the chat, anti-competitive, not being able to spend. Could this be where it's come from, is what I'm asking you boys. Like, is it, I'm not saying just Bruno, but an example of Bruno, in the fact that they want to go out and spend X amount on X player. And it begs your point, Pete, why can't they go out and, if they've got the money there waiting, why can't they go out and spend money on a player that they want to bring in if they can afford it? Why is everyone, dancing to the tune of the Premier League saying, oh, no, you can't do that? And it even goes back to what you've just said then as well, Daz, £1 billion sponsorship. Oh, no, but maybe that is a bit too much. But says who? Says who? Do you know, it's all me. The Premier League. Well, says you. Okay, then that's what Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's more. Sorry, Pete. I don't think it's a case that is linked to them wanting to buy Bruno. I think it's more linked to the 115 charges, and this is like, you're attacking us, we're coming for you, and this is our attack. I think Keith Patterson said it in Twitter. The best form of defense is attack, and City are gone on the attack here. No better man who would know all about this stuff as well, actually. But would that not risk the Premier League? The Premier League then going even firmer on City and going, we're going to nail you for these 115 charges if you bring us into dispute. You know what I mean? It could, and that'll be funny as well. But like we stand to gain, I think, no matter what.
Oh yeah,
we've got, and it also, hey, you never know. I'm gonna throw another devil's. I was gonna say stupid question, stupid angle. Sorry, devil's advocate, Chris, for you is maybe they stay away from Bruno because they need us. They need us fighting back on them in this case. Maybe we do get involved in the case. And as Dennis Snow says here, and nothing stopping the Premier League come to a settlement. So maybe we should join in. Maybe we get something out of this as well. But see how it all plays out, I guess. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Pete. You were going to jump in.
They came to sort of a settlement before when they allowed the takeover through. Then they never saw it progress any further than that. So who's to say that they don't come to an agreement beforehand and they get rid of it and they allow it to happen, or certainly very much loosen it to allow clubs to have a more sponsorships. And like you said, the only ones it benefits is, or ones it benefits the most. It doesn't even in fact benefit Man City the most. It benefits us the most because we're the ones that are able to gain from it. And this goes back to something that I've always thought with regards to anything sort of anti-competitive since we got the takeover, is that Newcastle United's ownership have obviously got the takeover signed off when a lot of clubs didn't want it to. So Newcastle United for the last 2.5 years have been kind of just treading carefully. They've been towing the line. They've been doing everything they need to do. They've had to play it safe. They couldn't get that takeover sorted and then go all guns blazing, anti-competitive, blah, 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 blah. They've just got the takeover done. They couldn't do it. So this is the dream scenario. This is the dream right now. Let Man City fight your case.
Yeah.
You can give them everything, all the evidence that you have to support that. And there's talk that that there are clubs in the Premier League, at least one, that are showing their support to Man City. And it's like...
Won't just be us, Pete. Won't just be us.
No, it won't be. I mean, to be fair, a lot of journalists have reported since that there's between 10 and 12 teams that have thrown their support towards the Premier League. And you kind of get your idea of who particularly those clubs are, those clubs that aren't going to want those third party because they're the ones that fought for the third party when Newcastle United took over. So they're going to be still in that ballpark because they know that would accelerate massively Newcastle United's ability to progress up the league. There's some other bits that have been said. We talked about the rival clubs and what they've accused them of. In their claim, Man City argue current Premier League rules will limit ability to buy best players and force them to charge fans more for tickets. Man City say they may also have to cut spending on youth development, women's football, and community programs. Carvey of Sky Sports News has said what Man City are going to argue at this arbitration hearing, which will start on Monday, is that some of the Premier League's financial rules are unlawful and they are incompatible with the UK competition law. So it's everything that we've just pretty much talked about, and they're backing that up. And I just hope for our sake as a club who are not fighting this case, although we're with you, Man City, win this one for us. We hope that they've got, as it's been said many a time in the takeover series for us, all the ducks in a row to make sure that when it happens, that they get the job done. And we'll be the ones celebrating just as much as they will be. And I think it changes the landscape for the Premier League if that happens. If Man City win that case, that changes everything for the Premier League. That puts the Premier League in an increasing weak position because one of their member clubs has beaten them in a legal case, in a big legal case, which is forced them to potentially change the rules that the Premier League had set previously. So I think there's a lot of interest in this if you're a Newcastle United fan, and we will continue to follow this. But there has been some breaking news, not Newcastle related, actually Aston Villa and Chelsea related, and it's involving Conor Gallagher. Villa are holding preliminary talks with Chelsea over a move for Conor Gallagher. Villa in contact with his camp as well. Unai Emery is a huge admirer and emerging as a top target. Now, they've already finalised the deal for Ross Barkley, which came as a bit of a surprise. And this might link to something I wasn't going to bring up, but I'll bring it up now just because we're on this conversation, because I found this strange. I find it strange, but it's in play and it's looking more likely to happen. And it's this.
Exactly. This one, yeah. I saw that
Douglas
too.
Luiz potentially going in a swap deal to Juventus with McKennie going the other way. I don't get this. I don't get this at all. But maybe this is why this is happening. Now, we know that there's financial constraints with Aston Villa and that they have to potentially sell a top talent to raise funds to be able to spend the kind of money that they want in this transfer window. And there's rumours and talks, and this is not Newcastle related, but we'll cover this very quickly because we've got other Newcastle United stuff to cover as well. It says that there's a potential, they value Douglas Luiz at 60 million euros. Juventus value McKennie at 30 million euros. I'm not quite sure about that, but that's what they value him. And so they're looking at a potential swap deal with maybe like 30 million euros going towards Villa, which maybe then can be used to potentially buy Conor Gallagher. I find it a strange, really strange situation. Like, Chris, you're shaking your head. Like, what are your thoughts about that? And I know we've talked about some of these players as well.
Yeah.
So, strange.
Mate, that's blown my mind. Like, but it also makes you kind of go, get on the phone to Villa and see if we can have Douglas Luiz. I mean, Villa wanting to swap Douglas Luiz for Weston McKennie. Like that's insanity to me. I know, obviously, it would then free up the funds for Villa to then make an approach for Conor Gallagher. But if you said to me, if I was Aston Villa and you said to me, you let Douglas Luiz go and you can have Conor Gallagher and Weston McKennie, my first response would be no. Like that just doesn't weigh up for me. And then also at the end of that article you put up then, Pete, Chelsea being interested in John Duran.
Yeah.
It's like, really?
Well, they tried to get him in January and were very close and just missed out on him. I think it was deadline day. They were really close to getting him, and something happened, and it didn't work out in the end. But yeah, they're as it says, long-standing interest in him.
They hadn't sold the hotel or something like that.
Yeah. Or maybe not allowed to
sell the hotel. It's gonna be, don't sell it while I'm in it, but it's gonna
part of the furniture, Chris.
I know. It's gonna be an interesting summer, isn't it? Because by the sounds of things, Chelsea and Villa are in a similar boat. And I tell you what, if Chelsea and Villa are doing all these strange, weird backhand like deals, it does make you question things, doesn't it? Because you couldn't really foresee swapping Weston McKennie for Douglas Luiz, and even if they threw 30 million euros in, it's still a really imbalanced deal for me. Because I mean, Pete, you'll know better than all of us. You know how highly Villa fans given what Billy said about Douglas Luiz this season. Like, I think Billy was rating him at over 100 million, wasn't he?
Yeah. You know what? I'm just while we're on the show now, I'm going to put that picture in the chat because I didn't put it in earlier, but I'm going to do it now, and I'm going to
get Billy's live reaction.
I'm going to gauge their reaction on. I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
It's crazy.
While you're doing that, Pete, I'll give my take on Douglas Luiz. That's a crazy move. Villa are they should be holding on to Douglas Luiz. We all talked about Villa. If they were to lose one player, who do we want? And we all agreed Douglas Luiz is the one we wanted from Villa if we were going to take someone. And then going for, and we even talked about McKennie there as well about a week ago or so. And we didn't want him anywhere near Newcastle. I was claiming his attitude isn't great. So it is a very strange one from Villa. And then linked to Conor Gallagher and Villa looking at him. He only came out today and said that he wants to go the new manager to put Chelsea back to where they belong and blah blah blah. Now, he's a Chelsea through and through, and he sounds like he wants to stay at Chelsea. He doesn't want to go anywhere. But I know things play out in the background and things change. But very strange situation, that one. That's all playing out.
Billy's response was saying, "I'm not buying it." Whether that's denial, whether that's I don't know what it is, but yeah, he's not buying it. That's the response to that. But that
Villa.
Sorry, Chris. Go on.
Oh, sorry, Pete. No, I was just going to say, Villa 1982 James UFTV. Thank you very much for joining us, mate. It's always good to see opposition fans in the chat, and he's had a few things to say about a piece. He's saying it's 65 million plus McKennie. I mean, I'd love to know where Juventus are getting the 65 million from. That does intrigue me. And he's also saying that apparently Douglas Luiz doesn't want to stay in the Premier League. He wants to leave the Premier League. So I said, well, maybe
Daz Luiz.
Daz Luiz.
That's what it says there. Don't get us confused. But yeah, and also sticking with Villa 1982, there's apparently Villa are back in City as well. So recruitment for LB. Looks so.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, with all this situation, and Villa have got money, they've got an ownership with money, that it would be in their best interest to back the situation, to back Man City, and to go all in, because again, it will benefit them. They'll be able to strengthen. Yeah, interesting, very interesting. But look, I thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Newcastle United talk. Because look, boys, I don't know what's going on. I have no idea what's going on with this goalkeeper situation. We are all over the place at the moment, right? We've got stuff going on with Mamardashvili. This was the last point in our last show that we kind of touched on. That Valencia weren't going to accept anything less than 40 million euros. Now, it's moved on, because in the last 24 hours, I believe, it's been reported over in Spain that Newcastle United had apparently met with representatives of Valencia and
presented
a 41 million euros proposition. And there were some rumors that it would be 72 hours they had, and this is all in, I believe, in Spanish right now. They've got 72 hours to respond, whether they were going to accept the deal or not. That was what the Spanish were reporting on this situation. Football España said they've reported that Newcastle have submitted that opening offer, believed to be around the 40 million euros asking price. We haven't seen that move on today. That hasn't developed anything more into anything more concrete, but that's come about. However, there have been continued reports of another goalkeeper, and it's this man, James Trafford of Burnley. The initial report was here from Craig Hope, saying that we are eyeing a 20 million move, and that's the situation that we're at. Other reports from other people today have suggested that we're about to make a formal offer for James Trafford, who is highly desired by Eddie Howe. Now, there's also talk about Mamardashvili, and that the Englishman is more likely to join at this stage. Now, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the situation is with the goalkeeping. We're rumored to be bidding for two separate goalkeepers at two separate prices. What do you make of it all? Like, which one do you think is more likely at this stage, Daz?
So the story of Mamardashvili, or the story that Joel has out there of Trafford? Okay, what's more likely? Now, what would I do? What's more likely? I don't know either. I don't have a clue what's going to happen. I'm all in on Mamardashvili. I'm going to use your phrase. I'm not going to lie. That I'm all in on Mamardashvili. No, I did like Trafford before he stayed at Burnley. He did have a rough season. He's very young as well. He was at Bolton, did really well before that, and did well at the under-21s. But so he's one for the future for sure. But I would rather us bring in that the number one 40 million euro. It's all right in my book to pay for a keeper that we're going to have for 10 years. You know, Once he takes the Premier League horse as well, but he's proven it in La Liga, and I think he will. So if it was my choice, it would be all in Marmaris really. But what's going to happen, I really don't know. And if this, I didn't see that 72 hours bit. So there's how many hours are left now before that runs out? That answers.
Yeah, yesterday afternoon. So are we talking? Got another day or so.
Okay, it's got a countdown clock on that one up in the corner. But yeah, I don't know. I would rather Marmaris really. I'd take Trafford, but it's more as the second option, rather than the number one option. That's my thoughts. Chris? I don't trust the Pope. I don't trust Pope now to make it through the season. And I know we all know how damaged we are with losing Pope. We cannot go through another season like that again. Eddie Howe will lose his job if you do. So it's the gamble. You gamble on Marmaris really now, and once they accept that offer. Sorry, Chris.
No. Do you know what, Pete? It's another fascinating story, isn't it? Because we're hearing loads of reports that apparently Nick Pope hasn't fully recovered from his shoulder injury, and there's worry from the Newcastle hierarchy that Nick Pope may not make a full season next season, and then he could break down again. So it begs the question, doesn't it? I mean, my personal preference, I'm like Daz. I genuinely don't know which one's more likely because it depends whatever report you believe. But my huge preference is that we just go and get Mamardashvili. Really, really is. Like I've been banging this drum now for a while. I know you boys have said the same, and that for me next season, there's still a lot of confidence within the fan base and possibly with Eddie Howe and the owners that Nick Pope can take us forward. I'm not wholly convinced. I do feel we've missed Nick Pope last season. There's no doubt, because the drop off from Nick Pope to Martin Dubravka was big. It was a big drop off, no doubt about that. But is Nick Pope? The big question is Nick Pope a top 6 goalkeeper? And I'm not wholly convinced that he is. He's significantly better than Martin Dubravka and Mark Gillespie and Loris Karius, but I'm not sure that he's the answer going forward. If we're wanting to win trophies, if we're wanting to challenge the top 4 consistently. That's not to say I'm saying Nick Pope's a bad goalkeeper. I don't think he is. I think he is a good goalkeeper. But I do think that the number 1 position is a big upgrade. Now the problem is James Trafford ready to be the number 1 for Newcastle? And the answer is probably no. People in the chat, I've just seen people in the chat, talking about this, and they're saying sell Pope and get Trafford and Mamardashvili. Wouldn't it be funny if we went and got both of them? It's probably unlikely, but given that we know Karius is definitely going to go, there's strong rumours that Martin Dubravka is going to go. We've retained Mark Gillespie, but that leaves us next season with Mark Gillespie and Nick Pope. So we need at least 1, possibly 2, if Nick Pope is to leave. I personally think, and I said this a while ago, boys, that I think if we were to bring in a number 1 to challenge Nick Pope, I don't think Nick Pope would leave. I think he would stay, because Nick Pope's next move, I can almost guarantee it. Nick Pope's next move is going to be a downgrade from Newcastle. For me, there's no doubt about that. He's not going up. He's only going to go down. So I think if Nick Pope was, told, listen, you're number 2, with the opportunity that you can still challenge, you're still going to get your cup games, blah blah blah. I think Nick Pope would be quite happy with that. But if we were to bring in the number 1, it needs to be a number 1 that's ready to play first team football, and I don't think James Trafford is. So basically, if there is a little bit of doubt around Nick Pope and him staying fit next season, if we go out and get James Trafford, what we're basically saying is, if Nick Pope gets injured next season, we're going to have James Trafford in net, for a big chunk of next season. Is everyone confident that James Trafford, albeit he looks a promising goalkeeper, he looks like someone who's going to have a big future ahead of him, is he going to be able to step in and do the number 1 job for Newcastle on a regular basis? I'm not so sure. I think he's a development goalkeeper, but that means you're putting all your trust in Nick Pope. Whereas if you go out and get Mamardashvili, he's your number 1, and then you've got Nick Pope there as the backup. So me personally, I hope that we go for Mamardashvili or someone of equivalent standing in the game at the moment.
Just looking at James Trafford's stats: 28 games, 28 started, 62 goals conceded. Goals conceded per game, 2.2. For me, that's not a goalkeeper that you're spending 20 million on. I have an issue with the price. I have an issue potentially with the goalkeeper coming in. I'm sure James Trafford in the years to come will be a good goalkeeper. I've got no doubts about that. Like, he is what he did in the Euros, his penalty saves, which is one of his traits. He is a good penalty saver. He's a decent shot stopper. Question marks about his feet, but there's question marks about a number of goalkeepers about their feet. It's not a must buy off the back of that. I've got question marks there about James Trafford coming in for £20 million. I just have. And for me, if we're going to go and get a goalkeeper, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, you go and get one that's better than the current one that you have.
Yeah.
So you go in and you buy a goalkeeper that's better than Nick Pope. Now, for me, Georgie Mamardashvili is better than Nick Pope. And so for me, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Some people say, oh, not priority position. If you've got question marks about Nick Pope, whether these rumours are true or not, I don't know. But if these rumours are true, that people at Newcastle United are not sure that Pope is able to withstand a full grueling season in goal, week in, week out, then you go and get a new goalkeeper. You don't mess around with that situation. Your goalkeeper is absolutely crucial to the spine of your team. So if you've got a fully fit Nick Pope, if you've got a fully fit Fabian Schär or a brand new centre-back that you're buying in the summer and you're planting them in there, you've got Bruno Guimaraes staying at the club. You've then got a top winger to complement Gordon, but then you've got Alexander Isak at the top. You've got a spine of the team there that is ready to go and attack the season.
Yeah.
If you've got question marks over your number one, and then you're bringing James Trafford in, who by all means didn't have a great season in the Premier League, it doesn't fill me with confidence. Is James Trafford better than Martin Dubravka? 100%. He is much better than Martin Dubravka. But for me, I need, in my opinion, a goalkeeper that's going to come in and better what I already have. And like you, I think Daz, Chris, can't remember who said it. One of you said it. You know, he'd be in goal for the next 10 years. He's 23 years old.
Yeah.
You know, he's not even nowhere near his prime, and yet he's pulling up numbers. If anyone goes and wants to know about Georgie Mamardashvili, go and watch the game. If you can find it, go and watch the game against Villarreal. He made about 8 world-class saves, including a penalty save in that game, and they still lost 1-0. That just shows how good he is. He has kept Valencia afloat this season, and they only just missed out on Europe. He is a top goalkeeper, and if we miss out on him in this summer because we're not willing to spend the money to bring him to the club, we are going to regret it, because there aren't many goalkeepers out there like him, and someone like him won't come available for a long time. And we've got a 32-year-old Nick Pope, and we've got a goalkeeper in Dubravka who's 35 who needs to be moved on. Like, we need a goalkeeper. A goalkeeper is going to be a priority. If it's not now, it's going to be next season. We need a goalkeeper. You've got one ready, go get him. It's frustrating the hell out of me, and it frustrates the hell out of me because I'm worried about the fact that we could potentially lose out on a top quality goalkeeper. That's my.
I want to ask you guys a question, right? Because I saw some people today mention we don't need a goalkeeper this transfer window. I'm saying, how? Why? We're going to lose. We're losing one, if not two, goalkeepers. We've got Pope, who we don't know how he's going to come back from that injury, whether he could go again, and blah blah blah. Like, it's too delicate a situation for me. It's and I want this is my question to you guys. To me, it's the priority position we need to apart from centre back as well, but the priority position we need to fill. For me now, even ahead of a striker at this stage, as we stand, we need a goalkeeper. What about you? would you put goalkeeper as the top position we need to fill, or what order would you put in?
I think it's equally important. It's equally important as bringing in a third choice striker. As in, we need to have 3 options to play up front. We need to have at least 2 ready-made players to play in goal. I mean, just imagine next season, boys. Fast forward to say September, October, November. Nick Pope gets injured. And we've signed James Trafford. Are we then going to be in a position where we're leaking goals? And we're putting a lot of responsibility as well on young shoulders. People in the chat saying, and it's a valid point. James Trafford, he conceded all those goals because he was in the Burnley team, and that's a valid point. But James Trafford, is he ready to be a top 4 challenging goalkeeper? I'm not so sure. And this is the problem. And to mention your point as well, Pete, about this 20 million price tag, I think this is the difficulty that clubs are going to find in getting James Trafford, because I agree with you, Pete. I think James Trafford is probably somewhere between a 10 and 12 million pound goalkeeper. But the trouble is, Burnley paid 20 million for him from Man City. So you're buying a goalkeeper as a development goalkeeper. Would I be happy having James Trafford as a second, possibly third? Maybe I'm going a bit overboard there, but a second, possibly third choice goalkeeper? Absolutely. But I want me number 1 to be I want there to be no doubt whatsoever over our number 1. And the problem is with Nick Pope, not only do I doubt whether or not he's capable to be the number 1 for the next 2, 3, 4 years as first choice, but I also doubt whether he can stay fit. So if you're going into next season, let's say for argument's sake, we go and get James Trafford. We're going in next season with Nick Pope, James Trafford, and Mark Gillespie. Am I going in confident that we're gonna be able to challenge on all fronts?
Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. And
Mark,
sorry, Daz, go on.
No, I was just going to put one of the comments. Mark says here in the comments, Devil's Advocate statement, one that you'd like, Chris. We scored the most goals we've ever scored in the Premier League. Should we spend the budget on securing up that at the back? Yes,
it's a great question. It's a great question.
Focus on that first, and then whatever you have left over then after that. And things may change as well as the transfer. Let's say the City thing. It comes through. Maybe the front gates open for us a small bit in what's left of the window, and then go big again after that. Sorry,
it's wide. Sorry, just before Pete comes in, it's widely acknowledged, and I think as Al said it, the reason that we finished where we did, and the reason that we didn't get enough points on the board, was because defensively we weren't good enough. So I think Mark's shout's a really good one. We scored plenty of goals, but we didn't shore up at the back. Is that because Nick Pope wasn't in between the sticks? Probably, yeah. But did we need to upgrade on Nick Pope anyway? Is he, like I say, when you're talking about Edison, Allison, are you putting Nick Pope in that bracket? Because I'm not.
No. I'm looking at the situation, and for me, I'm just not convinced. I'm not. Now, James Trafford might be the guy that we go to, and he might well come in, and he might well be brilliant. And if he is, then absolutely fantastic. But for me, we keep saying it. We want to be buying players that are going to better the first team. We want to be buying players that are going to come in and take out the current first team players. Isak did that with Callum Wilson. Okay. Gordon did that with Alan Saint-Maximin. Okay. Bruno Gomes did that with John Joe Shelby. Sven Botman did that initially with Dan Burn. We could keep going on. These players have come in and become the first team players. This is what needs to happen. A goalkeeper is absolutely crucial, right? Now, you could argue before Pope's injury that our goal, I think we'd only scored 15, conceded 15, which was equal to Arsenal, who were the best defensive record in the Premier League this season. Okay, so at that point, you could argue that we were in a good spot. But since then, with Martin Dubravka in the team, tells its own story. And some of the goals that he conceded himself were absolutely shocking. A quality goalkeeper comes in and prevents a lot of those goals from happening. And for all we know, we pick up a number of more points, which puts us in a European spot. It's as simple as that. Now, what you want is a goalkeeper that's capable of doing that. And he certainly is. Nick Pope is as well, as you've mentioned. But for me, I'm greedy. I'm saying I want two of the best goalkeepers available. Nick Pope, if your shoulder's not okay, right, and you can only play select amount of games, fine. Go sit on the bench. Mama Dashford comes in. We'll give you the cup games. Go play in the cup games. Go get us to the last stages of the cup, okay, and play there. And we have Mama Dashford that can fly us up the league. I was exactly the same with Martin Dubravka when Nick Pope came in, and that's why I lost all my kind of support until he stepped on the pitch with Martin Dubravka. Because what did he do? He went crying off and went to Man United to then sit on the bench for 6 months and play one game. But he didn't want to sit on the bench at Newcastle United. That's what I didn't agree with. But actually, Newcastle United as a club should have been a lot firmer with that and say, no, you are a Newcastle United player. You stay at this club, right, and you fight for your place. And bring the goalkeeper in that's going to test you, Nick Pope, because you're out for 4 or 5 months, and we need to know that you're up for playing again on a regular basis and playing at the top level. Okay? Can you prove that to us? Because if not, we're going to put a goalkeeper in that can. It's as simple as that. This is what the top teams do. This is what top teams do. They buy the best players to compete with the best players. 40 million euros, around 35 million pounds, isn't a massive amount for a top goalkeeper that's already proven at that level. It's not. For me, 20 million for a goalkeeper that isn't proven at the top level and got relegated from Burnley by conceding 62 goals, and then not just conceding 62 goals, then got benched for the last 10 games of the season because the manager didn't trust him. For me, why am I then looking at a club, our club, going to spend 20 million on that player to go, oh, we'll take him? I had Natalie on the phone this afternoon. I dropped a message around James Trafford. She's a Burnley fan. We
No
know
Nay Never podcast.
No Nay Never. We had her on for away days. Anyone that watches away days, you'll know. You know what her response to me was? Do you know what her response to me was? I'll read it to you. Okay. So I messaged her and I asked her the question. I'm going to read it.
Here we go.
Okay. Her response was, I'll happily drive him to you. That was her response. That's
She
it.
doesn't run a taxi firm or anything, does she?
I don't know. She was like, I'll happily drive him to you. Don't rate him. Don't rate him. You're the second choice goalkeeper came in. He kept his place for the last 10 games of the season. Arguably, they were better defensively with him in goal. Why are we then going to spend 20 million on him? I don't get it. In 2 years' time,
and then him PPR number 2.
Yeah,
he's our number 2 then. And then when Pope invariably gets injured, we've then got James Trafford as our number 1. And then are we going to be having this same conversation like we did last season, where we're going, oh, we should have prioritized, we should have bought, a ready-made number 1. And then we're having this conversation like we did last season over the fact that we left ourselves short by having Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak up front as the only 2 options. No, and it wasn't enough.
James Trafford should be a conversation in our Fully Loaded transfer show in 2 or 3 years down the line when he's had a couple of years at a Bournemouth or a Palace or whoever, and he's pulling up trees and he's tearing it apart, and we're then going to pay 30 million for him. Yeah, that's fine.
That's fair.
I don't mind that at that point because he's proven it. But I don't get it.
It's more a gamble than the 40 million euro, 20 million pounds is on Trafford is more of a gamble than 40 million euro on Marmarshvili.
Yeah. And like I said to you before, boys, I genuinely think, going back to what Pete just said about Dubravka, I genuinely think if we brought in a brand new number 1, I don't think Nick Pope has to leave the club. I don't think he does. I think he stays and he fights for his place. Because the only club or the only way that Nick Pope goes if he leaves Newcastle is down. And what better opportunity for Eddie Howe to go, listen, I'm bringing in this guy. He's going to be the number 1, but you're there to compete with him. I'm not ruling you out. I'm not discarding you. I want to keep you. I want 2 good goalkeepers. Most clubs have 2 good goalkeepers. Look at Man City with Ederson and Ortega. Ortega could go and be a number one somewhere else, but it won't be as good as Man City.
Yeah. Same as Alisson and Queven Keller at Liverpool as well. He came in and he proved himself.
Yeah. And by the looks of things, Adam Ramsdale's not kicking and screaming trying to get out the club, is he?
No.
He gets linked with Newcastle and he says, that's news to me.
Yeah, there are rumours that he does leave. That I think he does want to leave. I think he will leave. He will leave, and that's another interesting conversation. Is that what are you who are you rather in at that point? Are you rather in James Trafford, or are you rather in if Mamardashvili is off the table, which I think we all hope that it's not. Who are you rather in? Are you rather in Ramsdale, or are you rather in Trafford?
I'm going to throw another one because I saw something today. I meant to send it on to you guys. I think Porto are buying another keeper. So how about Diego Costa then as a backup alternative? So I'm not 100% sure of that, but I thought I saw something on that. But I don't want to go there yet.
If we're not going to spend £35 million on Mamardashvili, then how much is he going to cost? Because he'll probably cost considerably more. To get him out of Porto, but again, top quality goalkeeper. I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, forget James Trafford for a second. Forget Mamardashvili for a second. Okay, if there's question marks about Pope, would you take a loan with a view to buy for Aaron Ramsdale?
Yeah, loan option. Yeah. Because that'll allow us to have more financial clout in the other positions, like the right winger that people are screaming out for in the chat, and the striker. Even some people are just linking back to a number 6, and the centre back that we now need to purchase rather than get on a free transfer. So yes, my answer. If Mamardashvili falls through.
Now he's not one of our priority signings. That's not who we want, by the way. Just to put it clear, make it clear to the chat that none of us are saying yes, let's go for Ramsdale. I think we've always kind of been like that. But would we take him if the other two weren't in the conversation?
So are you saying would I, if Trafford and Mamardashvili weren't an option, would I take Ramsdale?
Yeah. On a loan with a view to buy.
Yes, but as we've discussed previously, I think for me, I don't necessarily think I don't think Ramsdale's that guy either. I think Ramsdale falls into the Nick Pope category in that I'm not wholly convinced he's the number one for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Is Ramsdale a good goalie? Yeah. Like I think he is a good goalkeeper, but I would class him in the same mold as Nick Pope. And I genuinely, whilst we had Graham Bailey on, didn't we, talking about it? And Graham Bailey.
Sorry, Chris, I'm going to interrupt for a second because Rich Moneymakers is a Chelsea fan of the chat, but as soon as we talked about Ramsdale, he goes, sorry guys, Chelsea are looking at Ramsdale too. Just typical Chelsea. He's only messing, I'm sure, but
maybe that's why we're talking about him.
Yeah. Go
sorry,
sign him as well. No. I think he would be a decent option. And if you told me going into next season that our number 1 and number 2 were Pope and Ramsdale, are we stronger than this season? Yeah, we are. But I still don't think that we've got that top level goalkeeper that we all want. And by the way, I would take Ramsdale over Trafford at this position. I would take Ramsdale over Trafford, particularly if you're going to pay 20 million for Trafford, you may as well pay a little bit extra for Ramsdale. Although apparently the Ramsdale deal is very much off the table because Arsenal want silly money for them, and I just can't see them getting it.
But this is the thing, like Yana just put it in the chat, so they can't see Arsenal loaning Ramsdale out. But and you're right, I agree with that. I can't see him loaning him out. But if he's desperate to leave, because he ain't going to want to sit on the bench again, Ray is clearly number 1. And for me, I'm just thinking in my mind, hold on a second, like who in their right mind is going to pay the crazy sort of money that Arsenal want for Ramsdale? Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get how, like, I don't see it personally. So I think the only way he'll end up leaving is maybe later on in the window on a loan with a view to buy. So anyway, I can see it happening. But I just thought it was an interesting one. Chevrolet, someone put in the chat, plays for Lille, played against Villa. I was actually really impressed with him. I think he's only young. I think he's like 21, 22, young goalkeeper. It's the only time I've seen him properly was against Villa in the away leg at Lille. And I was like, right, who's this goalkeeper? He was actually really impressive. Made some fantastic saves. Weren't great with penalties. But yeah, he was good. But again, is he ready to take on the mantle as first choice goalkeeper? I don't know. Maybe we or I am just being biased with regards to Mamardashvili, but because I've seen quite a lot of him and I know how good he is, I just wanted to go all out. So I really do hope that we get him. But
another spanner into the works, because we're still in keepers. We're how long? We're an hour and a half into the show. We're still in keepers. But the game has been mentioned in the chat. How did he not sign for someone in the last season? Like even go to Saudi for a season or something like it's bizarre. He just did nothing.
Yeah. Again, another option. Would you take him for a season? His last season at Man United, I think he got the Golden Glove for the most clean sheets.
Yeah.
You'll have to sell it soon. Cash in on it.
Well,
he's been missing on all those wages.
He keeps putting all those videos out. I don't know if you've seen them. He keeps putting the videos out of him making these worldy saves in his training. But no one. It'll probably be down to wages, boys. It'll probably be down to how much he's demanding. Yeah. And that will affect being able to spend. He might have to cut his demands down to be able to play. It all depends at this point. Is his motivation to play, or is his motivation money and just getting paid a crazy wage for his next team? Because if his motivation is to play, I think someone like Newcastle would probably look at him if his wages were reasonable. But again, I still want Mamardashvili. I think we
makes a good point. But just one thing on goalkeepers, Craig makes a good point. The 72 hours would link up nicely with the releasing of the ADIDAS new goalkeeper kit.
Yeah,
I like that thinking.
Yeah, that's there.
Hold that thought.
Hold that thought. Another thought is around centre backs. Because we talked about where's the priority positions to fill. For me, we need a Botman replacement. Botman won't be seen, in my opinion, until 2025. And so for the first half of the season, we need a ready go-to centre-back that's ready to play week in, week out. And there has been a few murmurs and talks about certain players. This player here doesn't seem to be going away. Dean Huijsen at Juventus was on loan at Roma. Newcastle apparently losing out to Tosin have now switched their focus to Dean Huijsen. He is 18 years old. He's still quite young, but has got huge potential. So he's a player that's not going away. Do you think he's the kind of player that Newcastle will put their money into? Because he's not going to come cheap. There was rumours around 25 to 30 million for him. He's 18, so he's obviously got longevity in the game. But do you see Newcastle going and signing a player like that for that sort of money, having missed out on Tosin?
Yeah, I do. He's someone that we talked about in the Antonio Mango show. I remember looking at him at the time there that he does resemble Shar a bit. He brings the ball out, he can hit a good pass, and he can get his head on a cross as well for a corner. So very, very Shar like. As Saruf. And loads of new people in the chat as well. Great to see the great new names in the chat. Yeah. Great, more and more people are finding us. So that's all down to you guys as well, hitting that like button. It gets us further afield. So thanks for everyone and for sharing the shows and stuff like that. So nice one on that. But I would see them looking at someone like that for sure. Again, it'd be coming to a different league. So he's played in Is it just Italy he's played in? He's in Juventus and Roma. Is that it? Yeah. So yeah. So coming to a different country would be. I see another one that William Smith has mentioned as well. Yes, he's got injured to the ACL. There's another one off our list. So, but he did look good in that final. It was a Conference League final, I think it was. Yeah. But yeah, I'd look at him. Your thoughts, Chris, on him?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that we know Jamal Lascelles has been given one more year, and I know he's going to be missing until probably early 2025. And Fabian Schär isn't getting any younger, which is a crying shame. So we do need to bring in a new right-sided centre back, and what better way than bringing in a youngster who you can kind of blood and gradually bring them into the team. And then you could argue that Huijsen would be a player who would be then ready for the 25-26 season, because he'd have a full year playing for Newcastle, but not being predominantly that first choice right centre back. There's the wife.
Don't worry, we'll get to some Everton talk in a minute.
Oh yeah. But yeah, you could argue he would be a really good signing to bring in, because he wouldn't demand first team football, and he would be someone that you just kind of ease in. Also, he's got Sandro Tonali there, who's recently joined from Serie A, so he would bed in pretty well. But yeah, I think he would be a signing for the future, and he would be someone who would bring competition for Fabian Schär, and obviously learn from Fabian Schär and the players around him, bringing him in for cup games, appearances. I think it'd be a good signing.
Before we get your text, sorry, Peter, I'm butting in, but Bobby is demanding. He's only just become a member. Look, where he is, somewhere here. Bobby, new member. Welcome to the Loaded Ultras, Bobby. But he's straight in, and he's looking for his shout out. Straight away, where is he? Again. I'll find it in a sec. But yeah, here he is, looking for a shout out. You deserve that shout out, Bobby. So thanks for becoming a member. If you too would like a shout out, become a Loaded Ultra, hit that join button for $1.99 a month, and you get into those fabulous prizes that we do sometimes along the way. We did a blast of them there for a while, a few a week, but we'll be back doing them pretty soon again. So, but thanks, Bobby.
Definitely. Dean Huijsen, I really like. I think he's going to be a top centre back in the future. I think he's capable now of playing Premier League football. Whether it's too much pressure to put on an 18-year-old to go to the well week in, week out and be starting in the absence of Sven Botman, I'm not quite sure. I would like Newcastle United to sign two centre backs, if I'm honest with you. I would like us to sign Dean Huijsen and maybe one other. And if we're signing someone very, very young, how about signing someone that's got a lot of experience? Matt Hummels, contract due to expire this month. I've not made any decisions on my future. Retirement still looking unlikely for Hummels. He doesn't want to move to Saudi or the MLS, BVB or another European club. Would you take Matt Hummels? Is that experience, getting him on a free? Huijsen, experience and inexperience, bringing them into this setup alongside Schär and Byrne. Would you take that for the season, boys?
What age is he?
I think he's like 34, Matt Hummels. But he don't play like it. If you watch him in the Champions League final, he was, and because I was out, I recorded the Champions League and then watched the whole game back the next day. And watching Matt Hummels, he was impressive. But yeah,
35. 35, not a great age.
No.
And he is going to be. Let's see, his birthday is it December? December, he's going to be 36. Wouldn't be the route I'd go, but for a 6 month kind of job, yeah. But he'd want a season-long deal because he'd get that in Saudi or somewhere. I'm going to say no.
Okay, not as a double whammy. Hummels and Huijsen as a two. You're only pay one fee.
Yeah, look. Okay, free transfer. Yeah, then that changes it to a free transfer. Yeah, as long as it's only a 1 year kind of. So it's kind of like a Thiago Silva this type signing that Chelsea made.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we've no, yeah, if we're for, I'd consider it then. Look, and it means that we're putting the money elsewhere than in the team. We have to look at alternatives now, but that with Tosin out of the picture. So yeah, I'll think about it. I've been on the fence.
We got to think about it. Chris, your thoughts? What would you take a Matt Hummels and a Dean Huijsen, 18-year-old and a 35-year-old, as part of our 4 centre-back options along with Shaw and Byrne? Would you take it?
Yeah, I think Huijsen's definitely someone who I'd take, particularly as we keep speaking about, don't we, that Fabian Shaw is, not going to be with us forever. And, to kind of give him the opportunity to kind of learn his trade. He won't demand a first team spot. I think he will be good. With Mats Hummels, it's hard to ignore him, given the type of player he is. We saw him roll back the years, didn't we, against us? He was fantastic. In fact, throughout the Champions League, he was absolutely fantastic. And he had a good season for Dortmund too. It would be hard to ignore someone like Mats Hummels purely for like his leadership as well, and he's a winner. He's somebody who's experienced. He's been around the block. He knows what it takes to win competitions, to win trophies, and that's not what we've got in abundance at the moment. So even bringing him in for something like a year, just to kind of pass on his experience to the other squad members, I think it would be hard to ignore someone like Mats Hummels. And maybe he'd want to try himself in the Premier League for the season. Why not? We saw Thiago Silva. I think Thiago Silva's stayed at Chelsea for a hell of a lot longer than what Chelsea probably anticipated him to. And then in the end, he's gone back to Brazil, hasn't he? I think he's joining Fluminense, back to his hometown club. So we look what Thiago Silva did at Chelsea. So yeah, Mats Hummels could be our Thiago Silva. I would struggle to turn my nose up at someone like Mats Hummels, because when you talk about some of the best centre backs in football in the past 5-10 years, Mats Hummels' name would definitely come up in that conversation.
I've thought about it. Hang on, I've thought about it. But first, I want to say thanks to Eden, who again, he's back and he's donated five memberships to our chatters. Thank you very much, Eden, and the chatters are also saying thanks. But right. I'll take him, but I'm going to send another aging right back to Germany for a fee.
Oh, interesting. We'll come to that in just a second, because got a couple of other centre backs just to run through really quickly. A player that was linked with us a while ago is rumoured to be leaving. Wolfsburg defender Maxim Lacroix. If I'm pronouncing that right, I'm probably not, is likely to leave this summer, reuniting with former head coach Oliver Glasner, maybe at Palace. Now, with him, would we potentially take him as an option at centre-back rather than him going to Palace? Palace have, I think, already signed another promising centre-back already. But 24 years old, good age, great age. Still there and available, but one more centre back that's not going away, and I think we'd be happy with this one. Sporting are willing to sell Ousmane Diomande for something between 50 million euros and 60 million euros, despite the player having an 80 million release clause. That was reported in Portugal, I think yesterday. So again, there are other options there. I'm not saying we're linked with Newcastle United, neither of them were, but again, do we go, and ask you this question again, do we go big now? Because I asked you this question in the last show. This is before Tosin chose Chelsea. Yeah. If we were to lose out on Chelsea for Tosin, do we go and spend big on a centre-back to be the bottom replacement? So I'll ask you it again. Do we? Does someone like Diomande come into that conversation, or Huijsen potentially come into that conversation where we're spending 30+ million on a centre back? What do you think we're likely to do, boys?
For me, I'm going full Harry Redknapp, wheeling and dealing, and I'm going, as I going to give you the same answer. I want Ousmane the Monday for from Sporting Lisbon. But we will have to offload some players and bring in some cash to balance the books then, for sure. So we do need to offload, say goodbye, thank him for his service, say goodbye to Miggy, say goodbye to Wilson, and we need to be bringing in a right winger as well, and a backup striker then as well that stays fit. So there's a lot of moving parts. Maybe then you are looking at the likes of selling Sean Longstaff or someone like that as well, and look at offers maybe for even, dare I say it, for Joe Willock or something, just because I don't think we're going to have enough PSR wiggle room to be able to bring in Marmashvili, who's already coming, and Osman Diomande, and more.
Chris, what are your thoughts? Are we going big, or are we budgeting to spend more elsewhere?
It's a really, really interesting one, isn't it? I think it's one of two options. So without trying to sound like I'm sitting on the fence, what I'm trying to say is I think it will be one of these two. So I think either we go all out and we bring in a first choice right centre back who could displace Fabian Schär. That is probably the more unlikely of the two options. For me, I think we will go in for a player who will be looking to eventually replace Fabian Schär. So like a Huijsen, like you've described. I actually think we'll keep our powder dry for the left centre-back. And the reason being is because we've got Dan Burn there, who we know played particularly well last season when called upon. We've then got Lloyd Kelly coming in as the option of a left-sided centre-back. I know that's not ideal, and I know that predominantly he'd want to play as a left-back. But not forgetting, we've got Sven Botman's the future. Sven Botman, I think they're hoping that Sven Botman will come back and be the first choice left centre back. So for me, I think it will be a young right-sided centre back, someone who they can progress, someone who is going to eventually take the mantle over from Fabian Schär. And let's not forget, if we were to bring in a young right centre back like a Huijsen, that would then leave you with options of Fabian Schär at right centre back, the new right centre back young option, and Emil Kraft can also do a job there. And not forgetting, boys, if worst case scenario, Dan Burn got injured at that left centre-back position and we didn't want to put Lloyd Kelly there, we know that Fabian Schär is equally adept at playing in that left centre-back position. So for me, I think it would be strange for us to go out and spend big on a left-sided centre-back. I think it will be a right-sided centre-back, and I think it will be a young up-and-coming one who will eventually take over from Fabian Schär. As I say, the two options for me are a first choice right centre back, and then you put Fabian Schär on the bench, or you bring in a young right sided centre back who provides cover for Fabian Schär, and I think that's the one that we'll go for. So a Huijsen would not surprise me. Someone like that.
Okay, yeah. I want to go big. I'd want to go big. I'd want to go and spend a little bit of money to get a top centre back in.
Are you going for the right-sided centre-back, Pete, or a left-sided centre-back?
I'm going for one that can play both. So, you got Scalvini, could have played both. You had the young Italian lad from Bologna, Califori, who was mentioned earlier on, higher up. He would have been ideal because he can potentially play both, but he's probably going to Juventus, which might well mean that Huijsen moves on with him going there. So that could be a little bit of a round robin on the back of that. Diomande, Inacio at Sporting as well. Either one of those. Jean-Claire Todibo, I'm not ruling it out. I know Man United are likely to get him, but he's another one that predominantly plays right, but can play on the left as well. Ideally, someone that can do both. And the reason being is because Botman will come back. Schär is getting a little bit older. There will be times where both positions are needed. So for me, I think a left-sided centre-back will be maybe a priority for this coming season, or certainly this half of the season, until Botman is back up and running 100%. And then I think we'd need to transition whoever we'd sign into that right-handed berth to play alongside Botman, and then you buy someone to maybe facilitate that with the likelihood of Lascelles being his last season and probably not getting a new contract. Questions around Fabian Schär next summer. Will he still be at Newcastle United? That allows us to nicely move on. But I think, you know, someone just put in their Braithwaite. Depending on how much he is, it would be an ideal signing. He didn't play well last night, but I do rate Mark Gay. I do think he's a good centre back. Like, there's rumours of him being potentially leaving Palace this summer. He didn't play well for England, but doesn't mean that he's not a bad player. Joachim Andersen is another one that we've talked about previously. For me, though, he's 28, nearly 29, or he might already be 29. Spending the 40 million that's prominently rumoured, for me, I don't think there's value in that, and I don't think Newcastle will buy that. Kenzie's put in there Slotterbeck, who we were linked with, and he is quality. I would love him, but he's going to be 60, 70 million now. So there are other centre-backs out there that you could potentially look at. But yeah, I do think we need to go and sign big. I think if we're going to sign big in two places this summer, and I mean big, I'm talking like 50 million plus. If we're going to do that on two players, it's the centre-back position and potentially the right wing position. And I know we've not got too much time left, but
well, just before you do, Pete, I just want to go to Eden's super chat from Eden. And if David Cook says we've gone fully football manager, Eden has gone FIFA, because he says, because this wouldn't even happen to Football Manager. I'll tell you my dream signing. He says Trent Alexander-Arnold. I genuinely believe he's England's most talented footballer. Debatable. I'm sure that one.
Interesting.
Very interesting point, isn't it?
1 year left on his contract.
And I tell you something, Eden. The big question for me on Trent Alexander-Arnold, I agree that he's a talented footballer. I wouldn't say he's England's most talented, but he's certainly a talented footballer. But the big question mark, or the big problem with Trent Alexander-Arnold for me, is that he's not very good defensively. So, you know, Liverpool, I don't know whether they see him as the first choice right back going forward. I don't know whether they want to transition him into that defensive or central midfield role. But then the trouble is he capable of playing in that central midfield role? I know Gareth Southgate has played in central midfield a little bit. I kind of feel like he's stuck in between two places. I tell you the perfect move for Trent Alexander-Arnold, and that's Real Madrid. Because Real Madrid, with the attacking options that they have, it doesn't even matter. He's not very good defensively, because he's that good going forward, and Real Madrid aren't worried so much about the defensive, you know, responsibilities. He'd fit in perfectly at right back as a replacement for Dani Carvajal. He'd be perfect at Real Madrid. He'd be another Galactico signing for them. You know, Real Madrid don't worry too much about being, you know, about having to defend
PSR.
too much. Yeah, or PSR. Yeah. He would be ideal for Real Madrid, who probably, you know, don't get attacked all that often, you know, consistently. So he would fit in perfectly there. But yeah, that's my question marks around Trent Alexander-Arnold. And he's only got a year left on his deal, as you boys just said. So be interesting to see if he signs a new deal at Liverpool, because I have a feeling he probably won't.
Yeah. Real Madrid is definitely the one for him. We dream to have him, but there's no way he's signed for Newcastle United. But yeah,
it'd be so funny if he did, though. So funny if he did.
You'd be dancing through the streets
of mate.
If we managed to pluck him away.
That'd be brilliant.
One last position for tonight. There's many more. We will talk about it. I think later on, more transfer talk later on this week. That is for sure. And that's the other position that I think we need to spend quite a bit of money on. And that's our right wing position. There's been some movement on players that have been linked with us over the last few days. We've talked about this player before, Morgan Gibbs-White. Forest have apparently, as far as Football Insider is concerned, will now view 40 million plus as a reasonable price for Morgan Gibbs-White. Interesting situation there with him. Do you see him as a viable option still for Newcastle this summer? He's been linked with us for like good 6 months now. Is he one that you think Newcastle have still got their eyes on, Daz?
Yeah, I do. And look at that. That's three roughly £40 million players. You talk about Marmot, really. Osman, Diamande, nearly just a bit more than 40 million, and Morgan Gibbs White. Yeah, that'd be delightful. I'd love that. So yeah, I think he's still on our radar. But I'd be interested to see what happens with him coming up to the end of June. And Pete, you put in our chat as well that he's not someone that's going to be at the Euros, so could be some movement on him during that time frame.
Yeah, I'd expect it. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, Chris, I know you're a fan of Morgan Gibbs White. You still want him at Newcastle United, and on top of that, would you see him as an upgraded right wing positional replacement to Miguel Almiron if Miggy does leave the club?
Yeah, good question, Pete. I think he's this will make you reminisce, Pete. I think he's the James Maddison we never got. If we were to sign Morgan Gibbs White, and I think the most attractive thing about Morgan Gibbs White is the fact that he's a player who can play in many positions. Is he an upgrade on Miggy at right wing? Yeah, I think he is. But predominantly, I don't think he would play as a right winger. Yeah, Saduf Salim said the same thing. He can play right wing, but I don't think predominantly he would. I think he would probably be a replacement for somebody like Joe Willock, someone who can give you that all action tenacity in the middle of the park, but he can take it up the field 30, 40 yards very, very quickly. But he's a player who he's probably Eddie Howe's dream. He loves to press the ball, very committed, and he can play in a number of positions. So we know that predominantly he's a number 10, even though most clubs don't play with a number 10 anymore. But he's someone who can play, you could argue, maybe as a false 9. He's someone who could play in the number 10, someone who can probably play number 8. We know he can play out wide on the right if needed. So he's a perfect utility player, and he's a great age, and he's someone who is only going to get better. He's only going to improve, and somebody like Eddie Howe would probably work wonders with him. I think if he came to Newcastle, imagine having somebody like Morgan Gibbs White coming off the bench. Initially, someone like Morgan Gibbs White coming off the bench. Look at that for an upgrade. In terms of options. And I'm not saying he wouldn't find his way into the starting 11. I'm sure he would, but I think he would allow Eddie Howe to play differently. I think we'd be able to quite quickly change formation, or have different options affordable to us. We saw the job that he did for England at the under-21 championships with Anthony Gordon. I think he'd be a great player, and if he's available for something like 40 million, it's a good deal. It's a good deal.
Yeah. Lots of people talk about, it'd be worth more than 40. People like Forest will ask for more. The deal was agreed with Wolves as a 40 million all-round package, but the initial fee was 25 million. And as far as Forest fans that I've spoke to have said, Forest have paid up to 30 at this point in time. So, 40 million doesn't seem too far away with the performances that he's put in. He's worthy of the 10 million upgrade, or maybe even 15 if it's around the 45 million potentially. He's definitely full value for that, and would definitely be a good sign. He plays in a number of positions, like you said, a Willock position in the midfield 3, right wing. You can play as a number 10 if you're playing that type of formation, depending on what Eddie Howe wants. He can play the lot, and versatility is key if you're playing for Eddie Howe. That is for sure. A couple of others just before we start rounding up, which was interesting. This man, Federico Chiesa, is back on the Newcastle United agenda. Lots of talk around him for various different reasons. There's talk around Federico. It's in Italian, so you can't see that there. But the rumours regarding him not potentially signing a new contract, and there's a dispute at this moment in time. There's reporters for Forza Juventus. One of the lead reporters has said that he wasn't sure about the situation, but the key to that saying there's no smoke without fire. Basically, what Juventus is saying is if you're not signing a new deal, then we're going to sell you. And the price they're looking at is around 35 to 40 million euros, which seems a little bit like crazy money to me. A deal should well be done. But of course, Graham Bailey, friend of the channel, has reported that Federico Chiesa's entourage have talked to a number of Premier League clubs, with Liverpool and Newcastle rumoured as well. I think Villa have been rumoured alongside that too. Federico Chiesa, are we still on? Are we still all in? Chiesa to Newcastle, boys? We still want that deal done?
Yeah, we'll take Chiesa for sure. But I haven't seen him play for a while, to tell you the truth. I remember him at the one of the European competitions. I think it was was it the last Euros? He's been injured for a while, and how did he perform last season? Actually, I did look at the stats. He did play a lot of games last season, didn't he? He did. I think he played at least 30.
He played, it says 33, started 25, 9 goals scored, and 2 assists, 10 goal contributions. The season before, where he was kind of just coming back from his ACL, so he didn't play the season before a lot of minutes because of his injury. But
and of course, the Tonali link up as well, Pete. We will be there.
Do you think we will look at an Italian player, someone like Chiesa, for example, to bring in to supplement that kind of? Obviously, he's had a year transition playing for Newcastle, but to bring someone in that he's familiar with, because they both played for Italy together. Do you think that's something that they maybe look at?
I don't think that'll be the deciding factor. It wouldn't be like, okay, he can be mates with Tonali, you can keep an eye on him. But, I think it'll be more so because Tonali's adjusted now. He's at Stag Do, isn't he? He was at Mark Gillespie's Stag Do as well. No, more so that he could persuade him if we really wanted the Chiesa to come, he could persuade him to come to Newcastle and sell it to him, and more so than anything else. I know it seems like we've been talking about Chiesa for the last 3 years, and nothing ever materializes from it. So, be interesting to see how it plays out. I think I have my doubts that this one would happen though.
Okay, Chris, you still living in that Chiesa dream world?
I mean, Chiesa's a player who, like you said, we've been keeping an eye on over a number of years now. And if by the sounds of it, Newcastle have too, he's 30 to 35 million euros. You've got to be interested at that price. I know a few people in the chat are saying that he predominantly plays on the left. And apparently, I think it was Foxy, who's our resident expert when it comes to the foreign leagues. Foxy said that he's only played once from the right. I mean, Foxy, you'll probably remember us talking about the fact that I wouldn't rule out us potentially bringing in a left winger, knowing that Anthony Gordon can always play on that right side. If it's we've consistently said on this channel, we believe if it's the right player, regardless of the position, we would still go for the player. And who knows if Chiesa is on that list, or Chiesa is one of the players that we've kind of highlighted, or I say we, but the club, Eddie Howe, as a player who is a long-term interest. So I think when a player of his ability becomes available, you've got to be interested. I think, is he an upgrade on some of our wingers, like Almiron and Murphy and players like that, of course. Who knows? I suppose the only big question for me on Chiesa is probably the wages. I imagine he would command pretty big wages, and it's whether or not we'd want him to be one of the top wage earners in the club. Is he at that point? I don't know. That would be my biggest question mark, I think.
I think wages and those type of demands could be key. The attraction potentially of Champions League or European teams, like say Villa and Liverpool are linked in there. I think they're going to be key to everything that we do. As a player, though, I would absolutely love him. And you're right. We're going to bring in players to be versatile. He might not have played much on the right hand side, but it may well be that he plays and performs there on occasion for Newcastle if he was to sign. And I don't think he'd be too disheartened to do so. He does play most of his football on his left hand side, but we've seen Gordon do exactly the same and played on the right and perform well there. So again, I don't see it at this point, but there's always a possibility. There's just one more player. I know I've said to you boys in the chat. One more player. One more tune. Just because he has been talked about a little bit, and we'll leave the rest for another time. Is this man? Brian Mbeumo is back on the Newcastle radar again, potentially. And Get French Football the other day had mentioned through an interview with him, said he would like to play on the biggest competitions at the best clubs. At 24 years old, he feels that he's ready to leave Brentford, and Newcastle and Liverpool are two teams interested in him. So again, that link hasn't gone away, and he's been linked with us for a while, boys. So you've got three real good quality right wingers that could come in and do a good job for Newcastle United. Morgan Gibbs-White, Brian Mbeumo, someone that can play potentially right wing, but mostly on the left, in Chiesa. But you're killing us now. Like everybody's linked with the same players, especially Chelsea. But again, Brian Mbeumo is a good, talented right winger, and probably more likely than a Chiesa, and maybe alongside Morgan Gibbs-White. So interesting, really interesting, that one. How much do you think it cost? I know when we did away days, they were talking big, crazy money, like 80 to 100 million, which was just madness. I think that was Ali that she mentioned as a price. But genuinely, and realistically, what do you think his value is to potentially get him out of Brentford?
35 million.
Okay.
I think that's our low ball first, but I think the high ball, that's where they will meet 35 million if they were to let him go. But 24, great age and Premier League experience. He looks a lot older than 24 as well. But and we did actually talk about him, believe it or not, back when Brentford were in the Championship and we played them in the Cup. We talked about them. We didn't know an awful lot about him at that stage, but we did talk about him. We'd have to go way back in the shows to find that. But no, he's proved himself in the Premier League definitely this season.
Yeah, interesting. Chris, you got a price?
Yeah, Ali did say 100 million. In fact, I think she might have said over 100 million. I wouldn't go that far, but I do get that he's a valuable player to them. And you know what? I know we laugh and joke, but it's whatever the player's value is to their club, I suppose. It's like us saying that we want 160, 170 million for Alexander Isak. Some people would laugh at that, and we go, no, but that's what we value him at. We've got good reason for that as well. But I think probably somewhere between. I'd say somewhere between 40 and 50 million, I think. 50 being the top end. The reason I'm saying that as well is that Brentford are going to lose some money on Tony, because I don't think they'll get as much money for Ivan Toney, who looks set to leave. And they would want a premium price for Mbeumo, particularly because he's 24 and he's had such a strong season. The only concern I've got from that quote, Pete, is that he says he wants to play in the biggest competitions. Well, he won't be able to with Newcastle this season, that's for sure. But
he's got time on his hands, though.
He's got time on his hands
to build up to it. Yeah,
exactly. But that to me sounds like a player who's maybe heard from his agent that some Champions League clubs might be interested in him. So I think we'd have a battle on our hands to try and persuade him to join Newcastle, not in terms of joining Newcastle as an upgrade on Brentford, but purely for the competition of other clubs that may be looking at him. But yeah, I think somewhere between 40 and 50 million would probably be around what I'd expect to get him for. I wouldn't go over 50 million. I don't think that, and not to mention that there is always that Premier League tax that we keep talking about. So you could argue you may get a bit better value going abroad, but that's where I'd put him at. What about you, Pete?
Honestly, I'd be putting him at the 30 to 35 million bracket. I won't pay any more than 40 million for him.
Do you think Brentford would let him go for that, though?
I don't know. If he's pushing for a move, maybe. If he's pushing for a move, I think there's a chance. But anything more than 40 million, I don't think it's worth it. I think he's got the potential to be worth more than 40 million. Definitely. I think moving to a club like Newcastle that's fighting for European football and will be fighting at the top end of the table. I actually think Newcastle would be a really good transition for him. Moving from Brentford to Liverpool, I don't think it would probably work. I think there'd be too much pressure on him. But I think moving from Brentford to Newcastle, who are not in Europe, I actually think that would fall into his favour. He'd be fighting with us for European football, achieve European football, then play with us European football, knowing that he'd won the opportunity to do that. And I think that would be ideal. And I think that would only kind of progress his value off the back of that. So, for me, I would say, I think probably a fair price would be around 35 million. 35.
Well, Chelsea have just got him on 40 million. So, forget about it. Cross him off the list.
And he's off.
Thanks, Rich.
But look, guys, girls, at that point, there's so much more we could have talked about. There's so many other players, so many other links, various other things we are. But we're going to leave it there because we're going to come back to it later on this week. There's lots more, and there may even be more news on top of that to talk about. So, boys, we'll leave it there for now.
We'll leave it there. We're saying screw the questions. We'll leave it there. Is that what we're saying?
We got loads of questions.
Well, you've said it now. So
we do some quick fire. Let's do some quick fire.
I'll do a quick fire. I think it'd be rude not to at least answer one or two questions after the brilliant questions. Yeah. Right. This may be for to carry on into the next show because Tom Dixon asked, here in Bayern and retaining the interest in Kieran Trippier in the window. Park that one for the next one. He's on our list, but we haven't got to it all today. We'll come back to that. We've already talked about Chiesa. And there's the other news as well about JD Sports. Tom mentioned it, but David mentioned as well. Did you know JD Sports signed a contract with a company called, was it GC? I thought it was GMG. But he says GCG here 11 months ago. And they are the largest Middle East sports shirts etc. retailer, can feel a new sponsorship in the offing. So that'd be interesting to see how that plays out as well. So yeah, I did see that today. Shout out to Jamie, who's a member for 24 months as well. Let's see, get a good question for you here, guys. This one from Jordy Tune for Life at the start. He asked the question, Gibbs White or Eze? If there was similar transfer fees, similar wages, which would you go for? And he is saying Eze. Who are you taking? One word answer.
One word answer. Eze.
I think Eze is slightly ahead of him right now.
Just.
I'm thinking I'm taking Morgan Gibbs White, to tell you the truth. Yeah. I don't. I'll leave it at one word answer. I won't go more. Another one that was on the list.
Deal there.
That was the deal, yeah.
The sports that was announced earlier on. Earlier on today. So official retail partner. Interesting. Yes. Well, last thing. So, just a comment, and I know I'm not sure if you have information on this, people. It comes from Saruf again. He says the Aguero, I can't pronounce his name, kid, is Willock 2.0. I know his name has been linked. Is he 18 or something like that? Again, maybe one to talk about again in another show. Yes. Available for as little as 12 million, and contact apparently has been made. Does look. I've not seen a lot of him. Watched a couple of videos. Does look a very, very intriguing talent. A lot of rawness about him, but looks a player.
Would you put him in the same ilk as like a Minter signing, Pete?
I would put him above Minter.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, I would put him as. I mean, for the fact he's going to cost more, I just think he's already playing in a higher tier level. He's already playing at a high level already and playing well. So I would say he's probably the next rung above Minter. He's probably a player that you could maybe bring in and actually facilitate into the first team. If you could not to start, but be a part of the squad. Because I think he's got an ability about him that could change games. But that's just from what I've seen. I've not watched the full game of him or anything like that. So that's just from just the little clips and bits that I've seen.
Well, just another quick shout out to our sponsors. Very quick. Just mention Loaded20 to either the radiatorshed.com or to Manscaped, and you get 20% off. So go talk to both Radiator Shed and Manscaped on that one. And we leave it with this one from Mick. City cans. Be nice. Hashtag City cans. Go on, City, and this one. Do us a favor this time, will ya? Get it over the line.
Fight the power.
Fight the power.
If Man City found on the hand, I'd be shaking them right now. I'll be doing this. Oh, good luck in your fight. Good luck, boys. We won.
That's your last.
Now
yeah. Make up for the FA Cup.
Yeah.
The oldest one. Right. That's it. We'll be back pretty soon. How'd you like that?